And before this video begins, I'd just like to give a special thank you to my Asban Team level patron, Fallon Cortez. Thank you for supporting their channel. Doctor Who is back! With Joy to the World recently airing on Christmas Day, and Season 2 quickly approaching, we're officially back in the midst of Doctor Who season. But things feel a little different this time around. The hype was temporarily derailed by the way Season 1 ended, but even though a lot of fans are now excited again for Season 2, there are still a lot of questions about the future of Doctor Who. Season 2 was filmed before Season 1 even finished airing, but ever since then, we've heard absolutely no confirmation about what's next. There have been contradictory claims by the production team, false confirmations by lead actors, and most concerning of them all, rumours that Disney are ending their co-production deal. Nobody seems to have any idea what is going on anymore, and it's got some people worried about Doctor Who's future as a whole. So, where is Doctor Who Season 3? First of all, we should probably take a look back at the recent past, when Season 1 and 2 were basically filmed back to back in 2023 and 2024. This is pretty unconventional by most TV standards, especially these days when shows usually have a big gap before their next season due to things like renewals. The reasons for this specific scheduling were given as providing the special effects team enough time to work, alongside giving the lead actors a long break so that Ncuti Gatwa, for example, could take on other roles in the meantime, rather than a constant full speed ahead schedule like we had in the past. Of course, this means we already know a bunch of spoilers and potential plot points about Season 2, but this isn't unusual for Doctor Who, which is leakier than a sieve. Season 2 wrapped filming in May 2024, coincidentally the same night 73 Yards aired. And honestly, that's how a lot of TV should be filmed, and it's how it used to be filmed, rather than these gaps we keep getting with things like House of the Dragon, for example, which hasn't even started filming again despite Season 2 finishing months ago. So considering Season 2 is right around the corner, you'd expect Season 3 to already be filming, right? Well, no. And that's what's got people so worried. All the way back in November 2023, Russell T Davies announced he was in the midst of planning Season 3 and that there were plans for Season 4 already. And then in June 2024, he followed up by saying he was working on the 4th script of Season 3, although obviously it wasn't actually commissioned yet. Interestingly, Davies also revealed that Gatwa would be off to do a play between the 20th of November and the 25th of January 2025, so the series would be filmed after that. If the scripts were finished by August, as Davies said they had to be, that still gives them plenty of time to film throughout this year and to have Season 3 ready for late 2026. And indeed, when Ncuti Gatwa appeared on Graham Norton in October, he supposedly announced that they would be shooting in 2025. But here's where things get weird, because that line was cut and changed when the actual episode aired. You see, Season 3 isn't commissioned yet. It can't go in front of cameras without being commissioned, and it's been publicly stated by the BBC and Disney that Doctor Who won't be renewed until after Season 2 has aired, which means no head start and a long wait between Season 2 and 3, despite Davies promising yearly seasons. So clearly things aren't as watertight as they seemed a year or so ago. And we have absolutely no idea why Gatwa said what he did. Maybe we never will, or maybe they were just wishfully thinking they'd be renewed early. But something we do know is that there's still definitely more Doctor Who to come after Season 2 anyway. In 2025, we have The War Between the Land and the Sea, a terribly named spin-off that's basically pointless and doesn't have much hype around it. But as it stands, it might be the last Doctor Who we get for a while. This spin-off was announced and filmed in 2024, with just 5 episodes. And it will be all about iconic Doctor Who villains, the Sea Devils, who reveal themselves to humanity and fight UNIT. It's all very typical stuff. But the timing and the placement of this miniseries is potentially illuminating. It's assumed that the War Between will air in 2025, giving the year two halves of Doctor Who. But now that 2026 is looking barren, if I was in charge, I would push War Between back to 2026, in order to guarantee the yearly Doctor Who Russell promised when he returned to the show. It's not much, but 5 episodes of a spin-off is still better than nothing at all. After all, it's almost a full series of Doctor Who itself by this point, and obviously far better than the gap year we had in 2019, for example. So it would be shrewd of Davis to push War Between Land and the Sea back just a little bit to keep Doctor Who relevant in an off year. It's what they tried to do with Class in 2016, but that show had a host of its own issues that prevented it being a successful tactic. But given the nature of Doctor Who's promotion now, a spin-off to satiate fans would probably work a little bit better compared to how it did back then. But right now, things aren't even up to Davis, by his own admission. No, Doctor Who now exists at the beck and call of another, the Mouse. Yes, the biggest talking point of the current era of Doctor Who is the Disney co-production deal. This deal was announced in 2022, with the corporate behemoth acting as the international distributor for the show and boosting the production budget to make Doctor Who look better and appeal to more people. However, this deal was only for 2 seasons, hence the delay for season 3, because it all depends on the success of those first 2 seasons. It's simple business really. If they like it, they'll renew the deal for more. But the problem is, it doesn't seem that they do. Well, at least not if you believe the Deadline report from shortly after season 1, which cast a lot of doubt and suggested Disney wasn't happy with the viewing figures of that season. And yes, it's time for the weekly reminder that Doctor Who fans are the only people in the world who care about TV ratings more than wrestling fans do. Oh, and by the way, in August, Disney's SVP Liam Keelan did say Disney is happy to have Doctor Who, so it's not like they're rushing to cancel the deal or publicly bad-mouthing it. It's been said time and time again that the decision will be made after season 2. So we can't presume to know the renewal chances before that even airs. We're only halfway through. Season 1 was middling, but season 2 could be absolutely incredible and turn everything around. After all, that's famously what happened with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the show that gave modern Doctor Who its format to begin with. But okay, let's say season 2 doesn't learn any of the lessons it could have from season 1. After all, it was filmed directly after, they couldn't take any fan reaction into account. So let's say Disney hates season 2 and kills the deal. What does that mean for season 3? Well, nothing really. Contrary to popular belief, Disney doesn't have creative control of Doctor Who. They have given some notes on episodes like Church on Ruby Road, but they don't really have enough power to straight up tell them what to do or who to cast. It's just a co-production deal. If they pull out, it just means it goes back to being fully BBC, and Doctor Who does remain the BBC's biggest show of its type. It's very lucrative, along with being one of Britain's biggest, most reliable TV exports. So the BBC would absolutely have a vested interest in making sure season 3 goes ahead in some form, and that's something Davis has already discussed in the past. In March 2024, he famously said that if Disney collapsed tomorrow and we had to go back to making Doctor Who on a normal BBC budget, we'd all rally round and make it, and suddenly the stories would become claustrophobic ghost stories. It's proof that Disney's involvement isn't the be-all end-all for Doctor Who's long-term survival. Season 3 will happen eventually. The only difference is who's paying for it. And besides, if you're like me, those claustrophobic ghost stories are actually better than big, overly fancy Marvel-esque action drama episodes. Just saying. I think there are much bigger issues for Doctor Who right now than this Disney deal. Regardless of whether they renew the show or not, there are definite questions around the longevity of the show, based on the current writing and presentation. There's always a lot of talk about viewing figures, which in my opinion are neither amazing nor are they terrible. They're just okay. It's nowhere near cancellation territory, but cultural interest is significantly down. In the 2020s, viewing figures on a TV set aren't what matter anymore. What companies want are impressions and virality. A modern show aimed at younger audiences lives and dies based on how many people talk about it, how many people make memes about it, how many people make TikTok dances about it. It's all about making a cultural impression and causes a buzz that pushes people towards subscribing to platforms and buying merchandise. Doctor Who can't do that right now, no matter how hard it tries. It's outdated, a relic of the past. I recently watched Ordinary Things' recap of 2024, and his exploration of the failures of the Kamala Harris presidential campaign reminded me of Doctor Who's own failures at appealing to the youth of today. Doctor Who hasn't changed in 20 years. It's still running a format based on late 90s, early 2000s shows. It desperately needs to change and adapt to survive in the modern era. It's coasting by on all that success and goodwill it built up 20 years ago. Joy to the World wasn't the cultural reset Doctor Who needed. It got completely overshadowed at Christmas. All the impressions and virality went to Wallace and Gromit and Gavin and Stacey. And yes, those were one-off occasions, they're not regularly airing TV. But even if they weren't on, I'm doubtful that Doctor Who would have been able to generate the necessary buzz because there just wasn't anything to pull from. Because, like I said, it wasn't being written for a modern audience. I don't like this fast food TV approach, chasing virality. But that is just a reality of modern TV and the landscape we now find ourselves in. And it's a landscape that people like Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat don't quite understand because it's not their landscape. Hype around Doctor Who Season 2 was very low until we got a solid trailer at Christmas, which injected some much needed excitement, and it is a good looking series, at least from what we can see, which inspires some hope. However, it's definitely a show that's feeling the weight of its own history. Even the modern iteration has been running for 20 years now, and it's struggling to reinvent itself for younger audiences, who are constantly being bombarded by other, more exciting and more engaging media on different platforms. You look at the current era of Doctor Who, and you struggle to understand who it's actually for. It's in a weird limbo and identity crisis, relying a lot on nostalgia for the past despite trying to draw in new audiences who have no connection to that history. The show has been struggling for over a decade by this point, with each new era seeing Doctor Who slipping further and further out of the cultural zeitgeist. What we can safely say is that Season 3 is going to happen one way or another. Whether Disney keeps the deal or not, we will still get Season 3. I'm not worried about whether that will exist or not. The true concern is whether it will be one of the last gasps for the show as it fights for relevance in a landscape that just isn't designed for the current style of Doctor Who. Something needs to change. Doctor Who can't keep relying on its legacy. Just look at its own past, where at the end of the second Doctor era it was tired and overplayed. It wasn't doing anything new. So they completely revolutionised the show with the third Doctor by getting rid of the TARDIS for a little bit, stranding him on Earth, making it more like the TV shows that were successful at that time, and then it rebuilt itself after that. That's what the show currently needs right now, something similar to that, just flip it on its head like they did so well back then. But yes, to answer the question from the start, Doctor Who Season 3 doesn't exist yet, but it's absolutely going to eventually. It's just everything afterwards that we do need to worry about. We can't keep being so complacent that it'll always be around. But that's enough doom and gloom for now. I'm sure Doctor Who will be just fine, but what do you think? Are we going to hear about Season 3 sooner or later? Is the show on its last legs? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. And, as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. And I'd just like to give a special thank you to my Asbantium level patron, Fallon Cortez, my Platinum level patron, Matthew Burns, and my Gold level patrons, Chris Douglas and Daniel Shillito. Thank you so much for your support.